Greetings, book lovers, and welcome to Author-ized. Today's guest, Jade Chang, is enjoying tremendous success with her first novel, The Wangs versus the World. Jade Chang has covered arts and culture as a journalist and editor. She's the recipient of a Sundance Fellowship for Arts Journalism, the AIGA Winterhouse Award for Design Criticism, and the James D. Houston Memorial Scholarship from the Squaw Valley Community of Writers. The Wangs versus the World is her debut novel. Welcome to Author-ized, Jade.
Thank you so much for having me.
First of all, I just want to read a couple of quotes from some reviews for The Wangs versus the World. From NPR.org. The Wangs is unrelentingly fun, but it's also raw and profane, a story of fierce pride, fierce anger, and even fiercer love. From Kirkus, a jam-packed, high-energy debut, head-spinning fun. From Newsday, Jade Chang's firecracker of a debut knowingly and refreshingly breaks every unwritten rule of the Asian American family saga, making for a blistering, high-energy read that's worthy of its pre-publication hype. And from Elle.com, one of the best debut novels of 2016. The Wangs versus the World has been a New York Times Editor's Choice, one of Amazon's best books of 2016, one of Entertainment Weekly's most anticipated titles of 2016, a fall 2016 Barnes & Noble Discover pick, an iBooks most anticipated book for fall, a Pop Sugar best book for fall, and Elle.com must-read book for fall. Wow. Were you prepared? Were you prepared for that? Because that is pretty darn amazing.
It was amazing. It was all a very pleasant surprise. Yes.
So when you were finished with the novel, did you get any rejections or did it just get scooped up right away?
No, when I was finished with the novel, so when you're not a celebrity, you have to write an entire novel, right, before you can even get an agent. So I finished the whole book and then I had sent it out to maybe 7 or 8 agents, and I hadn't gotten any rejections from them, but I was waiting and waiting and waiting for all of them to read the manuscript. And then I kind of had this moment of, I can't wait anymore! And I sent it out to some more agents, and one of them kind of scooped it up right away, and then the book went to auction the week after, which was a thrill and very, very surprising. Yeah.
In case our viewers don't know, what does it mean if a book goes to auction?
So generally what happens is an agent will send the book out to an array of different editors that they think might be interested in purchasing the book. And then if more than one editor is interested, then a book will usually go to auction. And I guess I've never bought a home either, but apparently it works the same way that a real estate auction works. So there's several rounds, and then the first round you're kind of giving blind bids, so you don't know how much the other people are bidding. But then the next 2 rounds, you kind of have to top like the last highest bid to stay in, or you drop out. And then the final round is again like a completely blind bid. Yeah.
Congratulations. Wow.
Thank
I
you.
mean, that must have been so exciting.
It was very exciting, but while it was happening, I was working at Goodreads, which book lovers will know. I was working there, while it was happening, and I was on deadline I used to help put out the newsletters. So I was on deadline for one of the newsletters. So I'd be getting this, I'd be getting these emails from my agent saying, okay, like, here's where we're at. But meanwhile, I was, doggedly writing HTML code as quickly as I could in order to get these to get this newsletter out. So yeah, it was a very surreal combination of events for sure.
Tell us a little bit about The Wangs versus the World. I'd like to hear you talk about the immigrant experience, the Chinese experience, why it was important, not just for you to write about, but for you to share with the world?
Well, one of my real driving forces when I started to write this book was I really wanted to write, I really wanted to write an immigrant novel that was kind of a rebellion against the traditional immigrant novel. In the sense that I think the immigrant novels that we have seen, the novels by people of color that we have seen, they're generally stories of like not fitting in and feeling like an outsider. And that was never my experience. That's not the way that I see myself in the story of America. We are a country of immigrants. I don't think that any one immigrant group is markedly an outsider. And so I really wanted to write a book where the characters see themselves as being totally central to the story of America. And I also, so people always ask whether any of this is true, if any of this is kind of based on my life. And it's, the book is about a family that had a cosmetics fortune and lost it all. And it's the story of what happens in the aftermath of that. And my family never had a cosmetics fortune to lose, but the background of the Wangs is similar to the background of both of my parents in that they both come from families that kind of been landowners in mainland China for generations, and then because of the rise of communism, had to flee to Taiwan. So both of my parents grew up in Taiwan, and they grew up with this sense of these lost ancestral lands, and that kind of loss and desire is what drives the father in this book. It's the thing that he wants to reclaim now that he's lost his fortune in America.
So, for me, beyond the fact that it discusses the Chinese experience, the immigrant experience, is a piece of it, but it's really about a family.
Totally.
Ultimately, it's
family.
Right. It's about a family. So I always remember the quote from Tolstoy: "Happy families are all alike. Every unhappy family is unhappy in its own way." So are the Wangs happy or unhappy? Talk about that part of it, the family.
Yeah, I will say I love that quote, but I also take issue with that quote because I think that is really giving short shrift to happiness. Why can't happiness and joy be as complex as sorrow? And, obviously we're all human beings. We all know that those things exist in equal measure in our lives, But I actually do see the Wangs as a happy family. They really love each other. There's 3 siblings who yeah, sure, they fight, they have little disputes, but they're there for each other, and they in a way they've chosen to live life in similar ways. There's the oldest daughter, Sina. She's sort of an art star. She's recently been disgraced, but she's a conceptual artist. And the middle son, Andrew, is still a college student, but he is an aspiring stand-up comic. And that was so fun to write. And the youngest daughter, Grace, she's in high school still, but she's a style blogger. And they all pursue these kind of artistic lives without a lot of kind of angst, I'd say, and with a lot of familial love and support. Mm-hmm.
Are you funny? Because from what I gather, especially the male child being a stand-up comedian, which of course all the reviews say is so out of character for an Asian family,
I disagree with that, actually. I mean, look, I think that being a comedian is out of character for any family. Like, I don't imagine that you grew up with people who really wanted their children to go into stand-up comedy either, right?
I did not. Right.
Yes.
Go to school.
Right, exactly. But as for the question of whether or not I'm funny, I mean, I happen to think I'm very funny, but I think it's really for other people to read the book and, laugh or not.
Talk about some of the authors that have influenced you, children, as a child, as a teenager, as an adult.
Sure. I mean, sometimes it amazes me when other writers can just sort of bam, 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 give this list of obvious influences, because I feel like everything I've ever read or seen has kind of influenced me. But what's funny? After I finished writing the book, my sister sent me this. She sent me this article about this middle grade writer, which just means that he writes for what is it, like sixth grade to eighth grade kind of. And there was this book that she and I both loved as kids called No Coins, Please. And it's by a writer named Gordon Corman, I believe. He's Canadian. He's written a ton. He's written like so many books. But this book was about this kind of young con artist who's on a road trip across America. And I read this book so many times as a kid, just over. And he has these kind of amazing scams in every city. And the Wangs versus the World is not about they're not con artists at all, but in a way, conceptual art, some people think it's a bit of a con. And stand-up comedy, these are kind of things that you create in order to elicit an emotion and a response from people. And I kind of realized that book, the setup of that book and the setup of my book, quite similar.
So would you say that the lead character in No Coins, Please is your favorite fictional character ever, or do you have
I can't choose a favorite, but I do love that character. He's a very gleeful young con artist, and he's just really funny and really smart. Yeah.
Can you share with us what you're working on now? Do you work full-time? Do you write full-time now?
So the book came out in October, and I've been pretty much promoting it full-time, which has been really fun. I've been on book tour for the past couple of months. I've been traveling like all over the country, going to different literary festivals and stuff like that. So yeah, it's been really amazing. It's just so great to actually get to meet people and talk to them. But I'm trying to work on another book right now. We'll see. Hopefully it'll proceed a little more quickly than this one, which took me 5 years to write.
Anything you can share about that?
Oh, no, I'm not ready to talk about it.
Okay. So now I think, well, let me ask you, is there anything else you'd like to talk about that you'd like your readers to know about you and your writing?
One of the best unexpected things of writing a book, I don't think I ever really thought that much about what it would be like to have other people read them. I thought about readers in the sense of writing is a very strange thing, right? When you're doing it, you have to kind of divorce yourself from that idea of there's a potential audience out there, because you can't really let that influence you. At the same time, asking someone to read a book is a really big ask. You're asking someone to spend so many hours of their lives to kind of give a certain amount of emotional energy to you, and you want to give them something worthwhile in return for that. And but even thinking about that, I didn't really think a lot about interactions with individual readers. And I gotta say that has been just so amazing and exciting, and it makes me sort of feel very optimistic about like the future of books in America. It's just been so cool to get to like talk to people who read the book and who really, people for whom the book really meant something. That's been amazing.
And now for something we do on every edition of Author-ized. It's something we call Buckles One-Liners. And we ask our authors to pick up their book and open to any page and read a passage and then talk about that passage.
Okay, so I'm going to flip and you can tell me when to stop.
Okay, have at it,
Okay.
Jade.
Ready?
Ready. Stop.
Or actually, okay, so this is the oldest daughter, Sina. She's currently living in a farmhouse in upstate New York. She's kind of in retreat, and she left New York because she had a disastrous art show and because her fiance left her. But he's just shown up, and this is her kind of describing him showing up. Okay. He'd shown up on her doorstep a week ago, carrying a rucksack stuffed with rumpled t-shirts, offering up a fistful of wildflowers that he'd picked off of her front lawn. Even before she heard the knock, Sina knew it was him. She'd felt it. A quickening, a shimmering, a pitched battle between her red and white blood cells, and then boom, 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 his closed-fisted pounding. Her wine glass squeaked against itself as she set it down, its molecules crowded tight, the liquid inside turning to blood, then vinegar, then back to an organic local blend. That glass had held together, but she'd fallen out of her carefully molded resistance, and, hair down, bra off, legs splayed, into him. Was that too risque?
No, I think it's fine for our, it's part of the book.
It's for reader. Yeah. Yeah, so Sina has this now ex-boyfriend, who is really kind of the bad ex-boyfriend that so many of us have, where it was, all passion and yet it's so hard to let go of that kind of relationship because you want those highs of emotion and yeah. So he's not the only man in her life. So you will see her with perhaps a more suitable boyfriend. But yeah, it was really fun to write those chapters, and they're actually, that story is kind of different from a lot of the other stuff in the book. I talk a lot about the financial collapse in the book. I talk a lot about the art world in the book. I talk a lot about kind of all different things, and a lot about family and like family and emotion. But it definitely was fun to write things that were not actually of my own life, but not so emotionally distant either. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you so much, Jade Chang, for joining us today at Author-ized. Everybody run out to the bookstore or the library and be sure to borrow The Wangs versus the World. We look forward to whatever comes next for you, and thank you again for joining us. And thank you, everyone, for joining us at Author-ized. Join us next time for inspiring authors talking about their inspiring books.